Hey everybody, it's Michelle LaVore and
Devin LaVore
coming at you. And we're so glad that you're here. And today we are going to be going over Act 2, Scene 36 of the Restoration play. And this is one of those weeks where we could have easily made videos every single day. And it feels almost like it went fast but was slow all at the same time. And there's just so much, but we will try and unpack as much as we can.
Well, like, it's Sunday already?
I know.
The week's over?
Yeah. But then when you think about the week, you're like, oh, that was this week? It feels like that was forever ago.
Yeah.
But
we will try and, when there's a lot going on.
Yeah, try and just kind of unpack everything that we can for you guys, and just pray that you guys are blessed by what the Lord has to share today. But before we begin, as always, we want to give a huge thank you to everyone who has continued to give to us, for all of you who have even sent extra as just as a Christmas present. So huge thank you to all of you. It's just such an amazing blessing to our family, and we just really can't thank you enough. And we are support-based, so if you would like to give to us, you can. We have a PayPal link and a Cash App below, and you can just click either of those.
Yep.
So, let's just get started. Like I said, this week has been just so much to it, and I think really where, even as I was preparing notes, here's my little notes.
Need to flash it.
Yes.
A little Post-it.
Yep. Lots of Post-its.
Man, lots of Post-its.
Should have bought stock in Post-its. But anyway, it was just, I was going through and I was really just seeing this beautiful picture that God was painting over this week. Because it really has actually been somewhat of a difficult week. It's been
to say the least.
It's been a week of a lot of exposure, and from the Lord, just exposing things in our heart, in the family. Just God is always at work, but there are times when it just seems so much heavier. Where we literally started off Sunday night with a God time where the word mourning, like not morning AM mourning, but mourning, grief and sorrow mourning, was the
sackcloth and ashes.
Yeah. And it was just like this sense of deep mourning. And it was just like, okay, Lord, what are you saying here? And he took us to the scripture where Moses dies, and they were in mourning. And there was that sense of one thing ending so something new can begin. And that was really kind of the start of the week of just this kind of, you could describe it as mourning, grief, sorrow, death, like that kind of sense throughout the entire week.
Yeah, and I really didn't even chime into it till like I think
it was like maybe Wednesday or Tuesday.
Yeah, it was the day before something special happened.
Yeah, it was Wednesday.
Okay, so Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then, I was just like, man, I'm like, because I was asking Michelle, I was like, man, Michelle, this is, because the week felt very silent to me. And of course, when you go to a funeral or a wake or something like that, it's kind of, you're not like, hey, yeah, murmur of celebration. You don't have that like what you have at a party. A party can be loud. But you go to a funeral, and that's just kind of what the week was starting to feel like. And I was like, wow, we're already into Wednesday. So by that time, it would have been Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, Michelle, so what do you feel like the week has been about, this week so far? What do you feel like? Is there like a theme that you're sensing from the Lord this week? And before she even said anything, I got the word death. It just came to me, death. And I was like, oh, okay, let's see what Michelle has to say.
Well, and it was funny because when I was at that time, it just felt like a separating.
Oh, yeah.
And again, but separate
your spirit from your soul.
It's no longer needed. I had this picture of like the placenta being separated, that's after birth and all this stuff. And so it was just like, oh, wow. So, yeah, there's this, like, death and separating, which could be, death to the soul, death to what you're feeling. As far as like, Lord, what's going on with the promises? Which
ties into the whole exposure and just, Dr. Pimple Popper, your soul just, ooh, that's ugly.
Yeah. And we just had a lot
that attitude's gross. Ugh.
Yeah. Get rid of it.
It's like, what are you thinking? You know what that thought says? You know what that thought really says? It says God doesn't actually love you and he doesn't fulfill his word. Ooh, that's ugly.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what we mean by exposure, stuff like that.
Yeah. Exactly. And
you have to look at it. See, when you get an exposure,
go ahead.
When you have an exposure moment, you're going to have one of two responses. You can either look at it or run from it and hide from it and pretend like you didn't see it. Mm-hmm. There's a knee-jerk reaction to self-save and therefore no, or paint it special to make it look like it's better than it really is. Mm-hmm. No, it's not ugly, it's beautiful, look at it, I put all the makeup on it. Mm-hmm. It's like, sorry, it's still a turd underneath. Mm-hmm. So did you like that word? Anyway.
Yeah.
And so that's what this whole training time that we've been in for the last 4 years, the Lord just taught us very much. We're like Jedi. And like, just look at it, man. Don't turn away. That's going to make things last longer. You want stuff to last longer? Yeah. No. Well, then look at the ugly. All right, I will. And then when you do, you get freedom. God's like, I'm trying to show you. The 444 is Psalm 44, verse 4. Give us victory. Command victories. Okay, cool. Well, I got to show you the enemy or the enemy that you got to overcome. And if you look at it, you can overcome it. Boom, there's your victory. Yeah. But if you don't look at it, you're not going to overcome it.
Yeah, you don't get victory in a battle by running away from the enemy. You actually have to go and face them. Yeah,
we're not Boov.
No.
We don't run from the danger. Yeah. Who's gonna get that? I don't know. If you have kids, you probably get that one.
Yeah, it's from the movie Home. If you don't know,
we are super Boov. we runs toward the danger.
Yeah. And so we also ended up, we were just going through this time where the Lord's like bringing the exposure, and just it was a lot about mourning and grief. And on top of it, actually on Monday, it was so interesting because sometimes like the Lord has this where like I'll listen to Dutch Sheets with the Give Him 15, and sometimes it's like I'm just tracking like all the time with I'm like, wow, this is just so good. But then other times the Lord doesn't have us listening to it. But this was one of those where I knew I had listened to, I think, the Friday Give Him 15, and he had talked about on Monday that they would be doing communion. And so for me personally, in my own heart, I was just like, ooh, I'm really feeling this thing of just doing communion. But I hadn't said anything to Devin about it. And then Monday morning,
you kept it from me.
I know. Well, it was just one of those. No, it was just one of those, like, you get it in your heart and you're just thinking about it, but it's not necessarily ready to share.
Yeah.
But then on Monday morning, when Devin was leading worship, I think you played one song or two songs, but the song was...
Oh, it was Remember.
It was Remember, which
by
is
Maverick City.
All about communion. And I was just like... Oh my gosh, like...
I was like, I feel like this is just the one song we're doing this morning. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Sweet communion. You set a table for us.
Yeah.
And you're like...
Yeah, I was
you're probably
just
going
like,
crazy inside. Even then, I don't know.
Yeah. And then later on, I think it was after God time, I was just like, hey, like, I really think this is something that the Lord has for us. And I had listened to the Give Him 15, and it was just like, yeah, we definitely as a family want to do this.
Because it talked about the victory meal.
Exactly.
And I'm just like, whoa, yeah, that's good. because 444 is about the victory meal. And why do we talk about 444? Because at the beginning of the week, even leading into Sunday, we were seeing triple fours. Like, you guys, listen, you need to understand. It was insane. Like, the amount of, I mean, there were 444s coming out like paparazzi.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was just like, wow, man. And it was a lot. And I was like, oh, man, you're really prepping us for, this is not going to be just a little exposure here, a little exposure there. This is going to be an exposure storm.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my gosh. Just take it. Take it and embrace it. You got to go to the doctor, just go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And the Lord's like, you're not going to the doctor, you're going to the funeral parlor. I'm like, oh, Lord. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't say that to me. It's just, there were so many. I knew, like, wow, this is significant. We'll just walk it out. Because you know how it is. The Lord speaks and he puts an impression on there. And a lot of times you're obeying the Lord and you don't even know why. You're just going, I hope I heard from the Lord right. You know? But you just know in your spirit, like, this is the Lord. I mean, I feel like this is like a 97% safe bet that I need to step out in this. Mm-hmm. And there were so many triple fours. It was crazy. And for us, that means Psalm 44 verse 4. But that means the Lord has to show you the thing that you need to overcome in order for the victory to, because the victory's already been commanded. Now you just have to go and get it. Mm-hmm. And in that sense, it's just following the Spirit and what He's doing in your life and coming into agreement with it, even if you don't like it. Because on the other end is going to be victory, and you're going to like that. You know, and so a lot of times in the midst of the battle, though, you can forget that, wait a minute, there's a victory and a reward on the other side, and there's a freedom from the thing you're struggling with on the other side. And you forget about it, and you go, oh, this is too much, I quit. Yeah. And then that separates the many from the few. You know?
And so, but it was just really awesome because then that Monday night we ended up just listening through the Give Him 15 during our God time and having communion together as a family. And it was just nice. Like this really like special moment. But the emphasis was on, one, the victory, but then two, just like remembering what Christ has done. And as I was coming up with the notes today and just kind of putting things together, I was reminded of 1 Peter 2:24.
Oh, pull it up. I closed it.
Yeah.
My bad.
It's all right.
There it is.
And it says, He personally bore our sins in His own body on the tree, as on an altar, and offered Himself on it, that we might die, cease to exist to sin, and live to righteousness. By His wounds you have been healed. And I feel like this verse really almost encapsulates.
Yeah,
there we go.
Girl, try to go GRE on us.
it covers everything about this week, because it's literally, we ended up, it's funny because this is the amplified version, and so it has like, as on an altar, and offered Himself on it. And literally we talked about altars this week, as an entire God time was just talking about the altar and
altar building and all that.
And so, but that literally is a whole nother video. But but I feel like this verse really just says, like, this is what He was talking about this week. It's like, hey, I took all your sins and bore it upon the cross, so that you can live to righteousness, so you can be dead to sin. You can be dead to wrong ways of thinking. I think a lot of the exposure for us is really, it's all those kind of lean on your own understanding, or just ways.
That's where it really hits. Right there.
That's where it really hits. Where it's like, oh,
your own soul's judgment of life situations and God Himself. Yeah.
And so there's both. You can have both, like the, hey, this, you're not thinking about this properly, you need to think about it in a different way exposure. You can have, the sin exposure where it's like, hey, look, you're being disobedient in this area, especially with our kids. It's like, hey, let's look at this. This is what's really going on here. And so for them, that can be a lot of where the exposure comes in. And so it's just been all of that. But ultimately, it's like God is saying, but you can overcome. You have the victory because of what I did on the cross. So you can live to righteousness, and all those wounds are healed through me. And so we were just kind of just.
Can I say something else on that? And so it's like the Lord's saying all that, right? And it's like, so that's why He exposes.
Yeah.
That's why He points to things and says, hey, take that defense mechanism band-aid of the soul that you got on that wound, take it off so that I can bring the healing. That's going to be the victory that's already available.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yes. That actually reminds me.
You
I've been trying to
remembered,
think of
yes.
what I wanted to say.
Between edits, we forget what were we talking about?
But actually it goes right into that, the covering. And with exposure. And I was reminded of this, how Adam and Eve, after they sinned, they covered themselves. They put on the leaves and but they had to expose themselves to the Lord so that He could truly cover them. And it took the sacrifice of animals to do it. It took the blood.
They were already degrading mentally.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, here, get some leaves. The Lord's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
But that's the same for us. It's like we can try and cover or, make things better for ourselves or for our heart. Like you're saying, it's like you might see something and it's like, oh no, I don't do that. That's not what's really happening here. Like this is, and it's like God looks at the heart. But if we come into agreement with what He's speaking and saying, then He can truly cover us with His mercy. And we can receive His mercy, and we can receive His grace to then go forward with His power to live righteously before Him, because it's like He can bring healing to those areas so you can go forward. But
I just think the mentality is hilarious. Let's cover ourselves with some leaves. It's like, it's detached from the vine. It's going to wither. You're going to be exposed all over again. It's not a permanent solution. It's like a kid. It's just like, oh no, there's a monster. Here, let me cover myself with these 100 thread count sheets. And so, this monster that's huge, it's got these long claws and big ferocious teeth. It's going to come up and it's going to be like, ooh man, those are sheets. I can't get through that. You know what I'm saying? The mentality of leaning on your own understanding. The Lord's like, man, you don't want to do that. But it's unfortunate, because the many, that's exactly what they do. They lean on their own understanding and then blame God for being treacherous. You know what I'm saying? I know that's like a personal little trigger moment for us, but it's like, no, God is good. He's good, and He's good in ways that, and that's a problem when we what am I saying? We're talking about wounds and covering it. And it's like when we say, no, I'm going to keep that wound covered because I don't trust God. Well, then you're going to be completely blind to actually how good God is, and instead of recognizing how good He is, you're going to begin to declare and prophesy and decree and declare all the garbage you think He is.
Well,
which He isn't. You know what I mean?
And if you're
it's
trying to cover the wound, it's actually going to become infested.
Yep. And it's going to consume your life and eventually kill you.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say that, but I just wanted to bring it out in the open there. Just boom.
Yeah. But when you allow the Lord to cover it, or you expose it to Him, He cleans it. He sews it up. He brings the healing.
He does what a good father would do. With the care that comes from His mind and His heart that you don't have. As much as we love the Lord, me and Michelle, we are vastly empty of certain things regarding God's heart, which is why you can constantly seek and get that filling and keep growing and find, I still need more. It's an unending hunger that's constantly being satisfied. It's like when you lean on your own understanding, it's an unending hunger that's never satisfied. You know, that's why the Lord's like, blessed are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for you will be filled. It's like you're going to constantly be being filled. You know, be being filled with the Holy Spirit. You know, it's a constant thing. It's just constant, like, IV drip of like revelation from God's heart. It's like, why would you not want that? You know. But anyway,
yeah, no,
I know that was a side note, but you know how I love my side notes.
Yep. You get the meal and all the sides.
Yeah, and a little parsley, a little heather area. You know what I'm saying?
What?
Oh, that's flowers. Never mind. Isn't that what it's called? Heather, or it's baby's breath? That's what it is. I think I'm confusing the two.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's okay. I'm not going to edit this part out. Hopefully you had fun with it. Moving on.
So moving on, I think also part of this week has been, I was reminded of the scripture, or I was just reminded of when Christ, when he was on the cross, there came that moment where he said, "It is finished." And I feel like this week we've also had "It is finished," and it's been the later half of the week, really.
A lot of finishings.
It was interesting in some ways. I feel like it's like this first half of the week was just the sense of mourning and grief and going to death. But then there came, "Hey, it is finished," and it's like we've been living in the "it is finished" now for the second half of the week, because Thursday night we finished the puzzle. And so for those of you who may not know, we talked about a puzzle that we've been Devin's been working on, and we really felt with this particular puzzle there was just a sense of just the Spirit of God on it, as far as like the prophetic nature of this puzzle.
It was a mandate. Like, do this puzzle now.
Yeah.
Come on, let's go. This is not like your normal puzzle experience. I really want you to do this and get this done. And I'm like, wow, the Lord of all creation is mandating me to do a puzzle.
Yeah.
How would you like that to be a national mandate? Everyone, I'm mandating you to do puzzles. People be like, I'm good. I'll do that.
Unless it's 3,000.
And I will give you a reward for it at the end.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I think I like this boss. He's good. Can he be president all the time? Sure, I can actually.
Yeah.
Right in here.
Yeah. Yeah, so we it got finished on, it was actually on Thursday night.
All right, get ready for this.
For our God time. Literally, I had, we went into God time, we were just worshiping, and it was just like, man, Lord, I really don't feel like there's this sense of anything that you have that you.
It was empty.
Like, it was just empty, and it was like, what is going on? There has to be something.
And I knew. I was like, we're not going to show up for God time, and God not going to show up and be like, well, I guess we're just going to end in prayer for what? He didn't say nothing.
Yeah.
How we're going to pray and respond when there's nothing said?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Which is something, just as a side note, you know, there are times when another side, little mac and cheese.
Girl, you're hilarious.
And but it was just like, you know, it can be uncomfortable to be in a position where if you're leading and you're not really feeling or sensing anything right away from the Lord.
You got nothing.
And you've got nothing, and you're just empty inside, and it's just like, okay, Lord,
you're on stage,
what do you have to say?
Spotlight's on you,
yeah,
the audience is looking,
and you're just standing there, like,
so,
okay. And so it was just this like uncomfortable place for my own heart, and it was just like, all right, well, we're just gonna
with it.
And it was just like, okay, we're just gonna keep sitting here, you know, and it was just kind of quiet and silent, And then like I ended up walking over to where Devin was doing the puzzle, and because you had given us a puzzle update, because it was like, ooh, I've only got like 16 pieces left of the big elephant, and then you got the baby. It was, the baby elephant had more than that, but not too much more. And he was like, oh, I finished the big elephant, and I was like, you know what, well, maybe we're just here to watch you finish the puzzle. And it was just like, yeah, that's exactly what God had for us.
Well, and as soon as you said that, I saw this picture of people in like a hospital waiting area, just waiting for news about the baby being born, about a baby being born. Think about this. That was the vision, and I was just like, oh, okay, they're not waiting on a surgery or something. It was more like, oh, okay, they're not allowed in, and they're just waiting. They're just waiting for what? A baby to be born. And that's literally the last part that I finished was the baby elephant. But there's more to it. There's more. Well, plot thickens here in a second.
Well, and I thought that was crazy because, when you're doing puzzles, a lot of times you'll pick certain areas that you work on. It's like, okay, let's get this done first because it might be easier to do.
Well, because it's got the same color scheme and pattern or something like that.
And so we're looking, and I was like, oh, okay, well, the big elephant obviously is going to be the last thing that we end up doing. It's probably do the baby, and then we'll get the big elephant. But the way that it worked out, we ended up having the big elephant done, and then the baby was the last.
Well, because I had the puzzle turned upside down.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking literally at the big elephant upside down, and I'm just putting in all the pieces, because sometimes it's like a puzzling technique. If you can't figure it out one way, turn it another way, and you get a different perspective, and it really works. And you're like, oh, okay, that's obvious, that goes there. Why didn't I see that before? But for the baby, I had to turn it back around because the baby's all the way down here at the bottom. So.
Yeah, and so anyway, we thought that was just like really awesome, but. Then you want to tell about like how putting how it in
ended? Well, because I got to the last 6 pieces, and I was like, oh, I just knew the Lord was like wanting me to stop. Hopefully this encourages you guys. For those of you who get these little impressions from the Lord that you really feel are from the Lord, but are just really weird to your soul man. Your soul man's going, this doesn't make any sense. I can't process this. That's right, soul, because you're not in charge. You don't know what's going on. Let the spirit man lead. Okay? And we're being led by the spirit man. You know what I'm saying? And so I got to the last 6 pieces, and like I put one in, right? And so technically there were 5, and so I was like, oh, I know, I know what needs to happen. So I had Joa. I said, here, Joa. I just picked a piece. I said, here, put this in somewhere, and he figured out where it went, and he put it in. And then Annalise put in a piece, and then Elia put in a piece, and then I was gonna be like, okay, Isaiah, it's your turn, because he is the baby of the family. He's like, it's your turn, and I was like, oh, Michelle, she can just put in the next piece. But in that moment, here's another one of those weird soul, it doesn't make sense to the soul moments. The Lord was like, no, have Michelle put in the piece, then have Isaiah put the last piece in. And the significance of it, I'm not thinking about in the moment. I'm just going with what I feel like the Lord's telling me. The Lord is fun. You don't even know. Well, I mean, you who watch our videos, you probably know. But I'm just saying, like, the Lord is just fun. He's just exciting. He is not boring. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, here, Michelle, you just put in a piece, And I was like, okay, Isaiah, come on over, buddy. And he came over. He's 4 years old. And I was like, here, buddy, put in the last piece. He even struggled to put it in. He put it in the wrong way. And he's like, oh, wait. I was like, buddy, turn it.
Yeah.
He turned it, and then he put it in. And we were like, yay, we finished it, and there was also a revelation about no pieces missing. Right?
Yeah.
Because I did this one really cool puzzle, and there was a piece missing. And I was like, that's messed up.
Yeah.
It's 999 pieces.
Yeah.
But we got some revelation out of that, too.
Yeah. So. Well, but I thought what was so cool, because we didn't realize this until later, and I was journaling, and I was like, oh my gosh, like literally it was Mom and the baby that put in the last two pieces of this puzzle. Yeah. And I was like, well, Lord, that's just kind of...
Because it was the last thing that I did. Yeah. The mama elephant and then the baby.
Yeah. So then the mama elephant and the baby elephant put...
Dang. I'm not gonna go there. The prophetic significance of that, I don't Mama.
But it's funny because sometimes it just reminds me of with Isaiah, our youngest. Sometimes he'll say like, "Oh, we're an elephant family," or "Today we're actually a monkey family."
Yeah.
So he always comes up with
fun
animals that we are. But
I guess our crude's days are over. We're animals now. So.
But so we finished the puzzle, and we were just kind of sitting, just like celebrating, like, wow, we finished the puzzle. This is so awesome. And then God starts just bringing some revelation to us. One of the things that was brought out was that it took us 21 nights to finish this puzzle. And 21 is about the end of distress.
Yep.
And so it was like, wow, okay, there's this ending of distress.
Yeah.
One, to finish a puzzle that's really huge, could be
3,000 pieces.
3,000 pieces.
It's huge. It's 48 inches by 29 inches.
Well,
29 and a half.
We can put a picture up.
Yeah.
And then
that's not going to let you know how big it is, though.
That's true.
The picture makes it look like a little thumbnail.
But it's big.
Yeah.
and then God was just like, I'm just sitting there, and we're just kind of going through it, and it just hit me all of a sudden. I was like, wow, 4 years ago, it was December 16th, 4 years ago, we received a reminder that this puzzle was a 3,000 piece puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
We received $3,000 at that time and that was the amount that allowed us to move to Nashville.
It was still by faith.
And it was still by faith because we had no idea.
It's like, Lord, this is not enough money to buy a house.
We're like, well, maybe we just need to get there. And it sent us on this journey.
Yeah.
And the puzzle,
we've been riding the wave since.
Yeah.
For 4 years. That's crazy.
And it was just like, wow. It just felt like this marker.
Yeah.
Because on the puzzle were all these animals. And throughout this journey, God has given us the picture of being like Noah in the ark. And we're filled with all of these animals, the animals representing visions and dreams that God has put in our hearts. Because
we're still in this ark with all of these visions and dreams.
That at one point will be released, and he's going to open that ark door. They're going to be released to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And I just really felt like this puzzle was representing just, look, all of these things that I have put in you this entire time. For the last 4 years, there has just been this tremendous like growth and development of all these visions and dreams, and new, like, even along this journey we've had new or just like growth in visions that God has given us, and refinement.
Well, what happens is the vision grows and then it branches.
Yeah.
And then other things are popping up, but it's in that same context of that vision.
Yeah.
You know, like a tree.
Exactly. And so
a tree animal.
But it was just like, wow, I just felt it was so significant that literally on the day that 4 years ago, we received the financial blessing at that point to be able to leave and come to Nashville. God has us finishing this puzzle that we know it was just like, wow, this is the Lord. He is just like, we're doing this puzzle. It's 3,000 pieces. On that exact day to be able to finish it.
At 7:52 p.m. Which for us is significant because Psalm 75:2 says at the proper time. You know, when the proper time comes.
Yeah.
Like the Lord will execute judgment and he will do it in righteousness and justice. And those who trust in him and hope in him won't be disappointed. It doesn't say all of that. But it talks about just at the proper time, he will act justly. It's like, don't even doubt that. Because when the circumstances arise and you got all this, global and national stuff going on, you think, well, this isn't right, and God's not doing anything about it. You know, look at Habakkuk. The first chapter was like, God, this isn't right, and you're not doing anything about it, so I'm mad, and so I'm sorry about that, so now speak to me. I'm sorry. You know, that's basically what chapter 1 is like. I'm mad because there's all this injustice and you're not doing anything, and so I know that me approaching you like this is not good, so I'm gonna not do that anymore, and I'm just gonna listen to you. Go. You know what I mean? There's chapter 1 for you in a nutshell.
That's funny. And so, yeah, so even just also with the puzzle, like you mentioned, it was that there's no piece missing. And that really just stood out to me actually the following morning, and as we were just kind of talking through again some of just the prophetic nature of what God was speaking, and it was just like nothing is missing.
Right.
And I just felt like that's what God was saying. He's like, nothing is missing. There is a fullness and a completeness to everything that I have put in you over these last 4 years. And just that it's, you know, it was just like, just to know that, like, we're seeing what he has developed is good. And so it was just really awesome to, like, have that moment with the Lord. And
there's a lot more to it as well. It's just really awesome that the fact that the baby of the family put in the last piece of the puzzle to the baby elephant, which was the last, and it was just like there they are waiting for the birth in this vision, the birth of a baby.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, that's kind of like what we're doing. We're waiting for the birth of this baby, which is the promises of God and the desires fulfilled, you know? And then when that night was over, when that was over, I ended up going to the movies to see Spider-Man. Yay. And I went by this parking lot. There was only one car in this parking lot. One car only. And I walked right by it, and I looked down, and the license plate was 9777. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And we had texted our friend Amy, was like, look, Amy, we finished it. It's amazing. And we were talking about 21, the number of distress, but she was like, oh, but it's also 3 cycles of 7, which represents an ending. Which 21 is an end of distress, but the 3 cycles, 7 itself is an ending. But when you have the 777, it's like the manifestation of that number, you know, which is a completion number. And I was like, whoa. I was like, so that kind of fit into that whole ending theme that God was doing toward the end of the week. See, it's all kind of like a salad. An ending salad, you know?
Yeah, so there was just that idea of, like, it is finished. And then yesterday was officially, like, our being here for 4 years. We
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So we have officially been in Nashville now for 4 years, and
4 years.
It's kind of crazy to think that. And so there again is this
What's
sense
today, the 19th?
Yeah.
So this would have been officially our first full day
in Nashville, because we arrived pretty late in the evening.
At 8:44 p.m. we walked into our hotel room.
Yep.
We walked in. It was completely dark, except off in the corner in the bedroom there's this great big clock, digital clock, said 8:44.
Yeah.
I was like, no way.
Yeah.
And it really just stood out to me. I had no idea what it meant at the time, but because we were still pretty fresh in the numbers language of the Lord. And it was just like, new beginning for the chosen. Here we go.
Yeah. And so it was just like, wow, like here we are literally ending the week on Saturday with the completion of us having arrived to Nashville 4 years ago. And so it was just like, wow, Lord, you're just doing so many ending and finishing things.
And anytime we see the 777s, we know that, like, and a lot of times with the 777s, we don't see them like a bunch. We'll just see it, and it's like a very significant stamp, like, hey, something's coming to an end. We know, we may not know what it is, but we know it's like something's ending. There's an ending. So it was just like a little boop, just like, yep, you're in an ending moment. Things are ending, things are wrapping up, and all these things are ending and wrapping up, you know?
Yeah.
Now, of course, this might be like a reach for some of you, so if you want to fast forward the next couple minutes, that's fine. But I'm just going to throw this out there because it's going to be an example that you might be like, okay, Dev, you're just kind of reaching there, right? Well, I'm just saying, like, I finish the puzzle and then I go and I see Spider-Man, right? Well, it's funny because the Spider-Man that's out right now, No Way Home, is literally an ending of... I don't know if this is like because of the Marvel, Disney and Sony, because Spider-Man actually belongs to Sony. He doesn't belong to Disney, and they're just kind of borrowing him to put him in there. But it's like maybe like the deal, his 3-movie deal is over, and he just signed another 3-movie deal, Tom Holland did, with Sony. I feel like Grace Randolph from Behind the Trailer, Beyond the Trailer. But so he's going to be doing Sony-specific Spider-Man movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And this movie, and if you haven't seen it, you know, you really need to mute, and you want to see it and you don't want spoilers, mute this part. But I feel like what they did with this movie, it was like a graceful way of writing Spider-Man out of everything that just has taken place with him in the MCU. And it was just really weird. So it was like, so even that movie, it was literally like an ending. It was crazy. Listen, because in the movie, I'm telling you, spoilers, you've been warned. In the movie, all 3 Spider-Mans are in it. The Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and all 3 of them, it's like the movie gives all 3 of them this graceful ending. Because there was kind of a dangle between Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield's, and they're just like, they were supposed to go with more. There was supposed to be a Spider-Man 4 for Tobey Maguire, but because of Part 3, it was terrible, you know. So they didn't even touch it. So they just left it. They left it ... You know, and that same thing happened with Andrew Garfield with Amazing Spider-Man, which was Part 2. It was like that didn't do so well, so they just stepped away. But this movie, it brings them back in, and Tom Holland's Spider-Man, he's going to be done, and so it's like all 3 of them, you see what I'm saying? All 3 got like this graceful end to their story. Like, even though Tobey Maguire's was like almost 20 years in the making, almost, but it's like they all kind of got a graceful end, and literally all of them are just kind of done with their story. So even that movie was like an ending of that series of Spider-Man Home. What was it, like No Way Home, Lost from Home, Can't Get Back Home, whatever the home, Far From Home, you know what I'm saying? That whole trilogy that he had going on, it was an end to it. And now literally the actual person, Tom Holland, is going full-blown Sony, and that Sony universe with all those characters, he's just going to be strictly in that universe. He's not going to be interacting with Doctor Strange and all the other MCU characters because of this. The deal is over between MCU and Sony, so now they're just going to part ways now. You know what I'm saying? So there's an ending there, you know? So there you go. I told you. So, I mean, when's the last time I went to the movies, babe? I mean, it was probably Shang-Chi.
Yeah,
you know, but it's been a while because it's not like I'm going all the time, you know? But if something like that comes out, I'm like, come on, we got to scrape together something. I got to go see this.
Yeah.
We got to get some $20 from somewhere. I'm going. We're just going to go by faith. I'm going to be able to go see this, you know?
Yeah. But, yeah, so again, just this idea of finishing was on this week, which kind of really, like I said, it ties into just that mourning and grief. And as far as even from God's own heart, as with just like, this is what I've done for you, but I've done all of this to bring forth a victory. And but one of the last things we wanted to talk about, which is really huge, how our week ended.
So wait, hold on, back up. So you're saying like there's the mourning and grief on the front end that leads to the victory in the end. Oh yeah. That's a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah. But then we finished off last night, and it's been interesting because I feel like for the last few weeks we've had this thing where it's like how we start our week, we finish our week kind of talking about the same thing, only at like kind of maybe different angles, or it's just there's something, you know, we had nothing's impossible, and then we ended a week with like the impossible, nothing's impossible. And I think even last week it ended very similarly of just like, wow,
like the bookends.
There's all these bookends that are happening. So once again this week we had bookends, and it's unexpected. Like I'm not even thinking about it until like when it happens. It's like,
well, because you're just kind of going with the flow of the Spirit.
We've got bookends again. How did that happen? And so, like I said, we started our week off talking about just this morning, and then the grief and the sorrow, and that's kind of how last night ended. And because Devin got a vision, and it was just really, really good. But there was definitely a sorrow.
There was actually a couple visions.
Yeah, it was a few
with a
things.
word.
But why don't you go ahead and share?
So that's how we're going to end this video. Little prophetic word of vision, you know. Well, it was interesting because I was just making some tea. That's how the Lord does. He interrupts in those moments to show you, hey, I'm relational. I just start conversation when I want because we can, right? Like, yep, you sure can anytime. And so we're doing God time, or just, man, the worship time was just really awesome, you know. I mean, we're in this wilderness time, so it's not like this downpour of the manifestation of the presence of God. Well, we haven't had that pretty much this whole time, for a good reason. Because the Lord's like, I want you getting lost in the emotion. I give you the manifestation of my presence. It's going to mess up everything, you know, because that's what makes things wet. You know what I mean? The Lord's like, no, I won't keep it dry for a specific period of time because I'm doing a showstopper bake here. Each element has to have its certain, you know what I mean? And so I'm just, you know, doing my tea, and the worship's amazing, and then the Lord just hits me with this idea of like, kind of like, what are we talking about here? This is like, here, let's give us a big picture of what's been going on this whole week, right? Well, I felt like the Lord kind of pulled me back even further and said, here, let me show you a big picture of what's been going on for the last several years all over the world. And the Lord was saying like, I had to stop worship and everything to say this because I was like, it was on me so heavy to just like get it out, you know. And I was like, but Lord, it's proper that we should wait till after worship to do that. And He's like, get it out. And I was like, okay. And so I felt like the Lord was just saying like, everyone has been going through a test. Everyone's been going through a test, and the purpose of the test was to see who will remain and who will fall. And the Lord was just like saying, those who remain are about to receive of my Spirit something that they've never received, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome, right? And they're going to receive of my Spirit, and it is going to be a position. They are going to be placed in a position in my kingdom that I will recognize. Other people may not recognize their position in the kingdom, but I will recognize it, and I will anoint it and approve of it by the manifestation of my Spirit's power, and also the demons will know it. You know, that's the only ones that really matter. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's gonna be known who you are in the Spirit. You know, it's easy to fool people with the eyes of what they think you are, how anointed they want you to be or think you are or whatever. But God's like, I will be approving those. I'm gonna place them in a position because that their reward is going to be a massive measure of my Spirit. That's going to, man, it's just. It can't be described. The Lord just like, you just got to know it's going to be awesome. And so while the Lord's sharing this with me, you know, I get two visions. When He was talking about, you know, those with the reward, you know, who are going to be rewarded by His Spirit. It was like, you just have to imagine the Lord sitting on His throne, and behind Him were these like, it was like a wall that went up beyond what you could see. And on this wall were like these little kind of like, what do you call those? Those little, there's like little porticos or something where you might set a vase of flowers to occupy just that one space.
Mm-hmm.
And there were like thousands of them behind him. I mean, hundreds of thousands. You can't count them. They were just behind him. And he was like, it was like a sense of like I was standing on this golden floor in front of him, and he just picked me up, and then he put me way up here onto the shelf. And he was like, that's the position I'm putting you in. I didn't even know what it was. I didn't know what it meant. I just knew it was he took his own hand, grabbed me, and put me in the position. Mm-hmm. And he was like, this is free. How does that work out in real life? David, Joseph. Mm-hmm. By his own work of his spirit, not by might or by power, but by his spirit, he moved Abner to say, forget the house of Saul. I'm going to go put David, and I'm going to make sure everyone listens to me. Anybody don't mess with me, you better watch it. You know what I'm saying? That's how he does it. Mm-hmm. You know, or he gives Pharaoh a dream, and it's just like the Lord placed Joseph in that position, and it was a high position. Okay? And so that's what the Lord did. But it was like an example of like, that's what I'm going to do with everybody who remains. The Lord's like, the scripture says, those who remain to the end shall be saved. Meaning those who endure to the end will be saved. You know, they'll get the reward. That's what I meant. I just repeated myself, didn't I? Anyway, they're going to get the reward. And the reward, he was saying to me in this moment, was a measure of his spirit that's going to put you in a position. And we've been getting the 757 and the 434. It's been a part of our journey. And 757 is Psalm 75:7. He brings down one and lifts up another. You know, he's wanting to lift up those who remain. And the Lord's like 2 Chronicles 16:9. The eyes of the Lord are roaming to and fro to prove himself strong on those whose hearts are blameless toward him. But you've got to go through a shaking and a testing to find out if you're really blameless. You know, it is the blood of Jesus that makes us blameless, but it's different. What he's talking about is like who's going to be truly faithful. You know, not everybody's going to be truly faithful. And so those who remain will get the reward. And so he was just showing me, and then he showed me this tree, this huge tree, and he's grabbing it, and his face is like right up on it, and he's just shaking it. This is a massive tree. Think like Redwoods, California, you know? I mean, he's just shaking it, and there's all of these, but it was an apple tree. This was interesting. It was an apple tree, and all these apples are just falling off the tree, and he's shaking. All these apples are falling off, and it was like raining apples. You know what I mean? It was like boom, 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 all over the place. And as he's shaking and all these apples are falling, he's just like, you could just tell he tucks his head and closes his eyes, and he's almost about ready to sob. And he's just so, I felt the grief. I mean, you felt it even as I was telling it, right?
Yeah.
So you felt it in the spirit. It was a communication of the God's heart to us, just saying like, I'm so grieved by this. But even though God was grieved by it, and he was just like, this is terrible, it didn't stop him from doing the shaking. And he's just shaking and shaking and shaking and shaking and shaking. And then he got to this point where nothing else was falling away. And he shook, and he just stopped, and he was just like, and then he just got like super happy faced all of a sudden. He was like, all right, let's go over here. You know what I mean? It was like he was going to go over to a different tree and shake these. It was like the tree of promises and desires fulfilled. He was like, nah, I'm going to go shake that tree. And those who remained can come and pick these up. You know, you can come. All right, you can come and pick up your promises. All right, you can come and pick up your desires, and we can go into another life. You know what I'm saying? It's the same idea of that reward sense of like, all right, you remain, I'm going to put you in this position. Same idea, same spirit, same purpose. It's just those who remained unshaken and didn't fall away from the Lord during the last several years, they're the ones that are going to be getting the reward. You know, so that's that interesting bookend part of like, wow, we're ending with a vision about the Lord grieving.
Yeah.
You know?
And you could really, last night, it was definitely, I felt grief.
Yeah.
And, and it's like, wow. But one of the things that I was thinking about was just that sorrow and sighing and just that phrase. And I was reminded of in Isaiah 35, at the very end of it, it talks about how sorrow and sighing are going to flee away. It says, and the ransom of the Lord shall return and come to Zion with singing, and everlasting joy shall be upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away.
The end of distress.
Yeah, and just kind of this, and even in that vision, there was that sense where the Lord
that was crazy. I said end of distress, and a 21 popped up on our timer. I'm just leaving it right there, unedited. I was like, end of distress, yes. And it was like 4 minutes and 21 seconds. I was like,
yeah. So
I couldn't help it. Sorry. You know me. Anyway.
Yep. But just that sense where the Lord is like shaking, and there is sorrow in his heart because he knows this has to be done.
Has to be. Yeah.
And yet it would cause such great grief to know, like, okay, I need to shake, and I know that people are falling all over the place because of the shaking.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, it's kind of like as a parent, there are times when you just know, like, this has to be done, because it's one of those, it's for your good kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you know that it's almost sometimes more difficult on the parent than it is necessarily for the child. But it's like, hey, we have to go through this, and but that's really kind of what's been going on. There's just been a shaking, and I know many people can attest to it. And I feel like that's been something that's come up. I feel like there's been some prophetic words that I've seen just recently about shaking. And but it's like that's what's been going on for quite a few years. This whole journey. It's really been a shaking.
Yeah, I felt like the Lord's like, this is what your entire priesthood time, Devin, it's been about this. Shaking. That's why I haven't told you things. That's why I kept you in the dark on purpose. Because I wanted to see, like, what are you going to do?
Yep.
It's like, all right, we're coming to the end of the year. We're expecting God to do miracles. January 1st, nothing happened. January 12th, nothing happened. And it's like, oh man, am I just grieved and bummed out. It's like, and then the Lord's continuing to speak about promise and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, what are you going to do? That was a shaking.
Yeah.
It was just like, all right, well, you know what? Lord, where else are we going to go? You have the words of life. I'm kind of upset with you right now, but whatever. I mean, you're worthy of more than my anger, but I'm going to give that to you as well. But I'm just saying, at the same time, at the end of the day, I mean, you saved my life. You brought me back to life when I was dead in my transgressions and sins. I'm not going to be mad at you forever. I mean, what am I going to do? Praise the person I'm angry at? I don't think so. It's like, no, it's about relationship. And the Lord's like, yes, go on to the next level. Check. Yeah. That's what it's been about. I feel like the Lord's saying the whole world's been, it's like, I almost feel like the Lord's like, it's been like this undercover boss audition for a position. And I'm shaking and testing everyone to see who will come. You know? God's like, I'm not voting anybody off.
Nope.
And I'm giving you all promises and visions and dreams to awaken what's already in you. It's your purpose, your destiny, your calling. I'm waking it in you, saying, here's who you are. This is your identity. And this is what I'm promising will happen if you follow me. See, a lot of people, they just want to hear the promise and they don't want to hear the if. And then they don't want to cooperate with what God is promising them. And then then the shaking happens and they say, oh, this is not what God promised. And then they leave. And it's like, well, yeah, you're never going to get it if you leave. And the Lord needs people who he knows he can count on and depend on. And upon them can he place his glory and his spirit upon them, upon them,
I love what you're saying about the undercover boss. I don't know how many of you have seen that show, but it really
Raise
is
your
so...
hand if you haven't seen the show. See, no one's raising their hands. I don't see any hands raised.
So in the show, the boss comes and he's undercover and he just goes and he is really...
Sometimes those disguises are ridiculous.
Yeah, they really are. But he's going just to see how things are really done with the employees, because we all know, like, when you're in work and the boss is coming, everybody's going to put on their best behavior. It's like, this is not really what happens when the boss is here, that kind of thing. And so it's like, that's why they want to go undercover, so they can see what's really happening. And as they go, they're just taking all these notes, but at the end there's the big reveal. And
it's awesome.
Yeah. And so, but it's like, for those employees who have, they were doing what they're supposed to do, there is great reward for them. Some of the employees, it might be like, they'll literally be like, hey, you know what, we're going to send you to some training, but they also give them something at the same time. Yeah. And of course, if there's a few shows where, like, as they are actually testing, undercover, and they're just like seeing these employees, they're just like,
we got to get this guy out of here now.
You got to go.
There's no need to wait to the end.
But I think, like, it's a great picture as far as just, like, with the Lord, and how, yes, there is a shaking that has been going on all over the world. And I loved how you were saying, even last night, you're like, it is global. It is, people, like, are going through shakings that nobody hears about. Nobody knows about.
No one's reporting on
Nobody's
anything.
Reporting nothing.
They don't have a channel. They don't have a blog. They don't have a vlog. They don't have a nothing.
There are those. It's like
they're just on the corner of such and such and so and so.
Yeah.
And they're a family in a house. No one knows it.
Yeah. But God has, like, been testing and shaking their hearts, and just that's what He's doing. But then it's like, we have to know that it's like, okay, it is finished. Now comes the time of rewarding. Now comes the time of promoting, because many of the times on Undercover Boss, promotions are what come. It's like, you know what, you have done such a great job. I loved everything you had to say. You know what, I'm promoting you to this new position. I've actually even created this position for you, and I'm going to put you in it. It's not something that's ever been heard of before. And so it's just, and I think that's what really was represented by that vision of, the Lord picking you up and putting you up on a shelf. And I don't know, it just reminds me of Elf on a Shelf, and it's some, it's like a popular thing, or it was
Is that a
back
Christmas
in this
thing?
I think it's a Christmas thing. I've never done it, but it's like the idea of, like, there's an elf and you put him on the shelf, and then he's supposed to, like, I don't know, give presents. I don't know what it's even about, but anyway. But yeah, so it's like the idea of promotion, the idea of reward, and just blessing. And I really believe that it's like, that's what God's like, okay, now we've gone through all the shaking. Now it's time for me to lift people up. It's the time for me to bring forth the reward and the refreshing and the renewing. And it's like, so that we can all go forth in just this, I don't know, just for those who have gone through the testing, it's like God wants to bring the refreshing. And
can I say something there? Because in that vision he stopped the shaking, there was a sigh, and then he turned. Now that's significant in a vision. It's like the Lord is turning. So you know what I'm saying? The Lord is turning the mourning and the grief and the sorrow into dancing, joy, and delight. The Lord is turning the tables. The Lord is turning things around. The Lord is giving divine turnarounds. It's like He's going to start doing the turning, because He is turning things, And I knew it. I was like, whoa, you're turning. That means your focus now, your focus, God, and the activity of your spirit is going to completely change now, and you're going in a complete direction, and it's a direction that's making you happy, not grieved and sad. Because whenever He has to do something, it's not fun. But whenever he gets to do what he wants to do, he can see. This is the deal. The Lord's shaking was so necessary because in order for him to do what he wants to do, he has to have a people that have been proven and tested over many times. They've had a testimony, so he needs to have people that he knows will cooperate and go with the flow. That means he's communicating and he's sharing stuff and saying, do this and do that, and they're not stopping and, no, I need to understand it before I cooperate with you. It's like, oh, that's frustrating. It's like, no, just trust me. You're hearing from me and you know it's me, yeah? Yes, just do it. See, he needs to have people in place that can already do that. You know what I mean? Then God begins to have some fun because he begins to flow in me and you and this person and that person to create this thing that happens, that when it happens, then it explodes into blessing for all these other people and all these other people. It's great. And he's like, this is amazing. I love it. He's just going crazy. But he can only do that through people who are willingly cooperating with him. You see what I'm saying? He can't do that through babies. He can't do that through, 50-year-old childish believers. He can't do that. He just can't. It becomes more of a maintenance thing at that point, which is what he eventually had with the nation of Israel that came out of Egypt. It was just like, well, this was just a flop. Just, yeah, go ahead. I'll miracle you for the next 40 years, but I will wait. So many times I was telling my son Joah, I flipped the script on him. And I was like, Bub, I get it. You're wounded and hurt and all that stuff because you're waiting on God, a promise from God. But I'm like, Joah, listen, what is God waiting for to manifest from you? What is he waiting for to get from you? All the investment and everything he's done in your life. And I mean, you have been a rock star this whole time. But then we come here to this room and you're done because you've just been knocked out by the disappointment. It's like he's wanting you to get up and continue to believe, man. And he's waiting for that from you. God, creator of all things, is waiting. He's waiting to see the desire of his heart fulfilled. You know what I'm saying? We're not the only ones just waiting on God. God's waiting on us a lot of times. And he's waiting to find a group of people that will just flow with him. It's kind of like that murmuration of birds. It just, you know what I mean? It just goes all over the place. It's like he's waiting to see that beautiful picture of this group of people. And he knows, even if it's only a few and not many, he's going to be able to flow through them in ways that are just miraculous just all the time. You know?
Well, and that just reminds me, actually, throughout this week, I think one thing that just really hit my heart afresh was just that knowing, like, what God has asked of us is not anything that he asks of us, he himself has already gone through. When we're asked, like you're saying, with the waiting, when God's like, hey, you're going to be in a place of waiting, place of wilderness.
If it happened to Jesus,
exactly.
It's like my last video.
Exactly.
If it happened to Jesus, you can expect it's going to happen to you.
Exactly. So it's like he went through the wilderness. He went through waiting. He went through grief and sorrow. And it was just like, again, like it hit my heart this week of just like, wow, like when God asks us, it was actually when we were talking about being on the altar. And it's like when God says, like, hey, he's breaking us apart. He himself broke for us, He said, he broke the bread and gave it and said, like, this is my body broken for you. And it was just like, wow, like God has really, there's nothing that he asks us that he himself has not been willing and has not gone through, and so it's just like knowing that can actually give just great comfort to your heart, but also help you have the right attitude as you go through things. And just knowing, like, and that's also how God can really be your comfort. It's like you can receive comfort from people, but most of the time, those who have been through a very similar experience, before you, it's
Right.
like you can receive the most comfort from them because
Yeah.
it's like they've been through it.
They get it.
They really
Yeah.
know it. And so it's like God is our comfort. And it's like he literally has been through it. When he, I don't know, so it's like everything that we go through, if we come to him, we can receive true comfort. And so we can just, really find strength in the Lord. And that really hit my heart again this week of just like, wow, Lord, everything that I go through, it's like, you are my comfort, and I can find great strength in you, and not see it as like, oh, Lord, why are you taking us through this? This is so painful. This is so hard. Just talking even over the last 4 years of some of the things that we've been through.
That's just our Nashville journey.
Yeah, just the Nashville part.
We had a year in Kansas City.
Yeah.
That was preparing us for this.
Yeah. And so it's just like, I don't know, just knowing like, wow, God, you really have been
God.
The comfort, the source of strength.
Come on.
The one who, it's like, okay, remain in me. It's the staying attached to that vine. That's the only way you're gonna remain in the shaking.
Yeah.
Is to be attached, and it's like he's the one who helps you remain.
Yeah.
And so it's just that's another side note. Maybe those are the green beans. Of just,
it's all good food.
I'm just like,
got food on my table.
Yeah. Just remembering that there is nothing that God asks of us that he himself has not already gone through.
Come on.
And that we can find great comfort in him when we go to him and just lay our hearts bare before him.
Well, speaking of endings, as you guys are watching this, you're watching this on the 20th, so it's our anniversary.
It is.
Our 13th anniversary. We have completed 13 years.
Yep.
And during that time, that God was working on our soul. We didn't even get into that revelation, did we?
We didn't.
Ooh, that's another video.
Yeah.
But no, we could talk about it. Let's talk about it. You want to talk about it? Video's already long.
It's going to be a super long video.
So that's kind of like an ending of something.
It is.
You know what I mean? It's 13, and now we're going into our
Finishing.
14th year, which is like the number of releasing. You know what I mean? Which is really cool. So there's a finishing there. And then this video itself is episode 100
for this year
of the Into the Day series, this playlist this year. And I'm just like, wow. I mean, there's so many ending things. You know?
And so that, again, 100 is representative of like a completion or a fullness.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we won't go into the spiritual.
No, that literally could be like...
We need to hang up.
An hour-long video in itself.
So good.
Hopefully we
look
will
at the
get to...
timestamp already. It's terrible.
Hopefully we will get to share that with you guys. But yes, we are... it's
13 years.
Yes.
That's pretty good.
It is.
It does not feel like 13 years.
No.
At all. That's crazy.
Yeah, we're still on our first date, so,
yeah.
But
there was evening, and now we're going into our morning.
Yeah, we haven't even...
Not the morning that we're talking about in this video.
No, we're going
the actual
into
AM.
Morning.
Into the day.
Into the day, thank you very
much.
much.
Where things are going to be happy and joyous.
Dancing and singing.
Yep.
And rejoicing.
The voice of the bride and the voice of the bridegroom.
Yep. So,
going into the house of the Lord. Come on, somebody.
Yes. But, so I think that is what we have to share with you guys today. And
I know it was a short video.
Yeah.
We'll try to do better next time.
But we do pray that you guys were blessed by what the Lord has to say. And, until next time, we will see you guys later.
Yep. Be blessed, guys. We love you.
Bye.
Bye.